Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. Today is January 4th, 2023, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
What's up out there, everybody? This is Ben Dickerson, your co-host. Oh, your co-host. I'm not even sure what I was trying to say there, but it turned out to be co-host, which is good. I was 9-5 last week on my picks. Very upset with myself for taking the Eagles against the Saints. Trying to be nice and trying to be fair and trying to have my Philadelphia brethren not be upset with me. I should have known better. They were ripe for the picking, and boy, did they get picked. At home, could only put up 10 points. Shame on them. A couple other losses I shouldn't have taken, the Packers being one, but I'm not going to cry about it. 9-5, that's what it is.
You only played 14 games last week?
The Bengals-Bills game did not get played. Did I miss one?
Yeah, that would have made it 16 games. I was 11 out of 15. Or I keep saying I. I say I when the numbers are really, really good. No.
Yeah, when they're bad, it was the bias.
The bias plus matchup was 73% last week.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the few times that the bias beats me.
Well, that's true. And that's why I tell people, you take the bias as your baseline information and you add your knowledge base to it. And then you make your decisions if you're trying to do some forecasts. So,
right.
But this is one of those unmanaged sets of numbers, and numbers are what they are. I just calculate them out and see what happens. That's why we say no opinion,
no conjecture.
Okay, the numbers are what they are. And we have another bias plus buster. I'll say who that is at the end of the segment on the bias plus segment. So it was a momentous week. When we talk about 15 games, the Monday night game, which was the crown jewel of the week. I mean, last week when I was talking about the intriguing game of the week, I had to purposely avoid that one because it was like, no, that game is too massive. That game is too big.
Right.
Pick something a little less. But we were all geared up for it. And then it happened, the young man, and I'm sorry, his name's escaping me. Give me his name.
Damar Hamlin.
Say it again.
Damar Hamlin.
Damar Hamlin. I've only seen his name like 30,000 times since then. Made a tackle, stood up, fell down, and required cardiac assistance. And he is now, from what I understand, still in critical condition, but he's hanging in there and making improvements. He's still in the ICU. We found out a lot about this young man, and apparently he's just exemplary. I hope I said that correctly. His teammates that love him. He had a GoFundMe set up as a Toys for Tots type of GoFundMe that had already been set up. And, once this happened, people found it, and it went from like 150,000 or 15,000, I think it was the goal. And I think it's up over 6 million right now.
Tell you the truth, and I remember this because it really made an impression on me. His original goal was $2,500.
Thank you.
And that is now blown out of the water. It's up to like 5 million, right?
I think it's 6, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and again, Bills Mafia, as they call themselves, they really rallied. The entire NFL community really rallied. The entire football community, at all levels has rallied. He was a Pittsburgh graduate. Shady McCoy, Pittsburgh graduate, a former Bill, also had a lot to say on that. So it became a question. I called you that night and I was like, okay, Ben, who was it that died on the court? And I couldn't remember the name as usual. And it was
Hank Gathers.
Hank Gathers, because I'm just trying to find a precedent for, how did they handle the game? Did they cancel the game and all that? And yes, they did. And, they canceled the game after that because that was a basketball game. But you and I had actually witnessed to some degree that having happened already.
Yes.
And from what I understand, Ben, again, in football, it's rare. Like that was a first that people could remember,
I found out this morning something very similar to this actually did happen in the NFL. Keyshawn Johnson brought it up. Keyshawn Johnson, when he was a member of the New York Jets, had a game, very important game near the end of the season. I forget when it was, back in whenever he was playing. They were playing the Detroit Lions. They needed the win to get a playoff spot. And one of the other receivers, and the name escapes me, on his team suffered a cardiac incident and had to be resuscitated on the field. They got him back. They took him off the field, and they continued the game. Now, this is years ago, okay? I forgot when Keyshawn played, the 80s, the 90s, probably the 90s. But he said he remembers shortly after the guy was removed from the field and they started the game back up, they threw him a pass. And it was all he could do to throw his hands up in the air and go through the motions of trying to catch it, and he missed it. And at that point, he realized he was in no shape to play football after witnessing what he witnessed. So that gave me context as to what these guys went through as they were on the field watching. And because they were all around watching on television, we didn't really get the full gist of what was actually going on the field. Can you imagine a close friend, teammate, somebody you consider like your brother? He goes down on the field. You're used to seeing guys go down, but all of a sudden he's being given CPR and they're using the shock paddles on him. No wonder guys were out there crying and bawling and stuff. There's no telling what I would do. I don't know what I would do. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine that.
Well, my point was that it's rare. Keyshawn found one other incident.
Yes.
But if you look at football, I mean, we got what, 55, 57 Super Bowls?
Oh, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying.
All of those games doesn't really happen a lot. From what I understand, Ben, it happens more in baseball.
Really?
Yeah. If that ball hits you.
Oh, yeah. But I tell you the truth, at this point, we're not exactly sure exactly what happened and why it happened. In other words, for instance, in baseball, if you get hit in a certain spot in your chest with like a fastball or something, or a hard thrown ball, it can cause you, it happens in hockey too. Guys get hit in the chest with the puck.
Right.
Cause your heart to skip a beat. If it hits hard enough and hits in the right spot, can cause your heart to skip a beat and can cause you to lose consciousness and can cause you to lose a little bit of blood to the brain. That kind of thing is one thing. And I think it was Bart Scott who said he thinks that's what happened, because he said T. Higgins, right before the hit, lowered his head and might have caught him. But we don't know for sure. The Hank Gathers incident, he actually had a disorder. He had a cardiomyopathy.
He knew about his disorder before.
They knew about it, yes. They didn't know it was going to kill him.
You know what else reminded me of? John Dorisbas from the Eagles.
Yes, the Eagles long snapper.
He was a long snapper, had a very tragic childhood. Mother was murdered or something like that.
Yeah.
But he had some kind of an aneurysm on his heart or something like that they didn't know. And I think he was in the Saints. Saints were doing physicals on him or something like that.
That's where they found it.
Yeah. So he wound up becoming a magician, really a good magician.
Pretty successful too. He's good. He's
really good. There's one I always think about, the one with Randy Moss. He did the little card trick on Randy Moss, man.
Put the card inside the football?
Yeah.
I saw that. That was
Randy
good.
Moss freaked out, man.
Yeah.
He freaked out.
Yeah.
So,
So
that's who I thought about. So you don't know if he had any underlying conditions. We don't know any of that kind of stuff. And it could have been an underlying condition plus a hit. You know what I mean? That
we have
so
no
you
idea
don't know.
yet.
But long story short, he's still alive. The NFL was faced with a decision on what to do and how to go forward. From what I understand, the games that were scheduled for this weekend are still scheduled for this weekend. They
Yes.
have not decided on what to do with that particular game yet.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of where it stands. So when we talk about matchups, we're going to talk about the matchups, as they're scheduled.
What you got to do is you got to have a week 19.
A week 19, eh?
Push the playoffs back a
See,
week.
that's the logistical nightmare
Right.
that push this back. I mean, you got I guess you got leases and times and schedule for stadiums and
Right.
all of that kind of stuff
Right.
and everything. So it's an amazing logistical situation. I mean, we look at the scheduling and we go, geez, that must have been a nightmare putting that schedule together, but they do a pretty good job. So anyway, he's still alive. Supposedly, getting better. In terms of, I think they were talking about how much oxygen he requires.
Yes, I heard that.
That
He
was what
requires
was
less now, which is a good
he
thing.
was getting better.
Right.
So that's sort of the last I heard of it. And what can I tell you, man? Football is life. That is our motto.
Yeah,
Football is
but
life.
you hate to see something like that. I mean, it's bad enough when guys tear up an ankle or a shoulder or an Achilles or a knee, but something like this is a whole nother realm of of injury, and it's sad to see it happen. You feel bad for his family and all. Prayers go out, obviously. Now, here's the crazy thing. We're gonna move on to football here now. Not to be insensitive or anything. I don't want anybody coming at me like they're coming at Skip Bayless right now, because they're frying that dude.
Yeah, he's catching.
But we are going to talk about some football. Real fast. The fact that they suspended that game, which I am totally for, I have no problem with it. Crazy thing is, it set fantasy crazy. Like, fantasy is going nuts right now, because there are fantasy players out there who had players that were playing in that game on their fantasy teams and had opportunities to win fantasy championships with the points accumulated by those players. And now, because those players didn't get a chance to play a full game, they will either lose, which I think is totally unfair, or they'll be given an opportunity to win according to the commissioner of their league or whatever kind of site they're playing on, NFL, CBS, ESPN, blah, blah, blah. Most of the major sites like Yahoo and ESPN and NFL are making up some kind of option for commissioners of fantasy leagues to take part in, to make things fair for those people. My two major leagues that I'm in are both in CBS. What we're going to do is, under normal circumstances, we don't schedule games for week 18, just because of the fact that some teams have nothing to play for. Therefore, they may hold out starters. So we try to leave that alone. But what we're going to do, since it seems like Cincinnati and Buffalo both have a lot to play for, we don't think that they'll pull their starters. All their starters should play week 18. We're hoping. Okay. So we're going to let those players accrue whatever points they get in their games this weekend, then take those points and add them to their fantasy team score from week 17. And if it adds up that they win, then they win the championship. If it doesn't, then they're runner-up.
So let me make sure I understand. Week 18 is coming up.
Yes.
The Bengals are playing.
Bengals and Buffalo are playing.
Right. Well, I'm just going to use the Bengals right now.
Okay. Right.
I'm a fantasy guy. I had some Bengals on my fantasy team.
You got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and you're down 15 points.
So the points that are scored or given to me for week 18's game, they're going to give me those same number of points as if they were in week 17 also.
You're going to transfer those points to your score from week 17. Yes.
But I get to keep them in week 18 also.
You don't need them in week 18.
Oh, because that would have.
You're not playing in week 18.
Oh.
Only those you only care about what those players do in week 18.
That's right, because that was a championship weekend for fantasy. So that would have been the end of it.
Week 17 was championship day.
Okay.
Weekend.
All right.
Right.
So you don't have week 18 means nothing, to fantasy normally.
Right.
Only get their points.
Right. But it allows you to allow those players to get points. And then you transfer those points to your score from week 17. And if you got enough to win, like let's say you're down 7, like I said, I know this off the top of my head because somebody might at least got it. He's down 15. He's got Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Now, if Joe Burrow throws a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase, they both get 6 for the touchdown. That's 12 right there. Okay. Add on the fact that it's points per reception. That's 13 for the catch for Chase. And then whatever yardage, you tack that on, he's going to win the championship. Okay. If we didn't do this, he would lose the championship and those players would not have been able to help him. I find that very unfair. You have to let those players play.
I think if it sounds like a reasonable resolution to the issue and everybody agreed to it, so hey, all right. Speaking of points, Benny, are you ready to move on to the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings?
Yes, sir. This is the end of the year, man. I got to see what's going on.
I tell you, it's really funny when I'm doing these, and to me, that some of the point scenarios are actually humorous. So I'm sitting here working on an Excel spreadsheet laughing. If you were in the room with me, you probably were wondering what's wrong with this guy. What is it about an Excel spreadsheet that's funny? But we'll see as we do the numbers, all right?
All right.
And that means that in terms of the Sterling Net Point Power Ranking, and again, the Net Point Power Rankings is a way to rank teams by net points. That is the difference between points for, as represented by the APF there, and points against, as represented by APA. And that gives you your net points. We add on turnover differential because turnovers can equate to points, and that's part of our Bias Plus formula. But for right now, we're simply looking at the season-long statistics for these businesses, for these teams. Each team is a business, there's no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, it's funny that I believe the teams are structured as businesses, but the league itself is a nonprofit, structured as a nonprofit. In any event, we have 25 through 32. In red, you have those teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs. So I tried to make that sort of stand out a little bit, and it's got an E in front of it. And then your bottom 8, only Pittsburgh and Tennessee still have life. Pittsburgh is 25, Tennessee is 26, 27 through 32 is the Rams, Denver, Arizona, Chicago, Houston, and in last place, Jeff Saturday has that distinction. His team came in last place in that point. We do have one more week to go, so he might get off that floor. We'll see. But the Indianapolis Colts with minus 8.6 as their net point. So that means that over the year, they've averaged 8.6 points allowed more than they scored. That's about a touchdown and 2-point conversion, a little bit more. So that's about what they're losing by on average. In terms of scoring, average points 4, we're looking at Washington, the Rams, the Jets, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Houston, and in last place, the Denver Broncos, averaging 16 points per game. Washington at 25 was 18.4, so that's your range, 18 to about 16 points. Only about 2 points for that final 8, and they're allowing between 24 and 27 points per game. 25th place is the Raiders, followed by Houston, Miami, Indianapolis, Detroit, Arizona, Minnesota, and Chicago. So right there, you'll see when I was doing these numbers and I start giggling a little bit, it's when I see Minnesota in 31st place on defense. Just the range in the ranking between offense and defense with some of these teams is actually hilarious. That also goes for the Detroit Lions there at 29th place on defense. You know, it's just amazing. We'll talk about where they are offensively, but you don't see them over there on the offensive side. There are only a few teams. There are a few teams that you see in this grouping in different categories. Last category is average turnover differential. And again, for net points and turnover differential, since these are nets, you can be net negative. As you can see, all of the average net points are net negative. The average turnovers also in this case ranging from basically 0.3. And then you have a 1, 2, 3, 4-way tie at 0.4, and then the last two at 0.8. Last place is Indianapolis at 0.8, tied with New Orleans at 0.8. And from top to bottom, we have Atlanta, Kansas City. But that's not a big differential, 0.3. But Kansas City, yes. Washington, Las Vegas, the Jets, and Miami. So that pretty much wraps up the bottom quarter of the league. Mr. Dickerson, anything on this?
Well, 27 through 32, all those teams are eliminated. I would have to say that generally speaking, the Rams, the Broncos, I'll say even the Cardinals and the Colts were all expected to be far better than they turned out to be. Chicago and Houston, I don't think people were expecting a whole lot out of them, so they won't be surprised to see them at the bottom. But those other teams turned out to be a bit of a surprise for a lot of people. A lot of their fans are seriously disappointed as to how they went through this season.
Well, you got the former last year's Super Bowl champion down in that group. You got one of the biggest quarterback trades in the league in that group.
Right.
You got a brand new super contract for the quarterback in Arizona.
Right.
Chicago has a quarterback that's everybody says is just extremely talented. They haven't figured out what to do with him. Houston and Indianapolis, they just seem to have collapsed, those two. So, yeah, there you go. Ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
17 through 24. All right. So in black, you see you still have Miami. They are in the negative, but only slightly at negative 0.4. You see 18 and 19 at New Orleans and the Jets, both eliminated at 0.8 and 0.9 respectively. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You have teams that are qualified for the playoffs, but they still have negative net points. That would be 20th Minnesota at negative 1.2. Carolina is right below them. They've been eliminated at negative 1.9, and Tampa Bay qualified at negative 2 net points, followed by Atlanta and Washington, both negative 2 and negative 2.1 and 2.6 respectively. So that's your 17 to 24 in terms of net points. So that's just below the midpoint. In scoring, you've got the Patriots, the Panthers. We're going from 17 to 24. Patriots, Panthers, Falcons, Ravens, Cardinals, Saints, Bears, and the Bucks. So the Bucks are averaging 18.5 points per game. The Patriots 21.3. That's interesting. Just to think about, the Patriots are averaging more points than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It's crazy.
You know, it's almost. Remember last week we were talking about Jared Goff looking so much better as a quarterback than the Rams quarterback that they traded for. But you're ranging from 21.3 down to 18.5, only about 3-point differential between 17 and 24th place on the offensive side. On the defensive side, again, only about 3-point differential, with Green Bay coming in at 17th, giving up 21.9 points per game, followed by a two-way tie between Cleveland and the Chargers, 22.1. Kansas City then at 20th, 22.3. The Rams 22.8. Panthers 22.9. Atlanta 23.1, and Seattle 24.1. Seattle was another team with a pretty good offense. Their defense isn't as bad. At least they're not in the bottom quartile. Is that how you say that, quartile? Anywho, turnover differential all in the negative. But from 17 down to 23, you got Houston, Arizona, Denver, Chicago, Tennessee, Tampa, and the Rams all tied at negative 0.1, and the Panthers coming in at 24th place at negative 0.2. So there you go. You got 2 playoff qualifiers. You got 4 playoff eliminated teams in this particular section, and both on defense and on offense. The 17th ranked team is averaging about 21. It goes up to 24 on defense and down to 23, about a 3-point move in both cases. So it's getting kind of tight. Things have tightened up. The teams are a little closer in terms of their numbers, which I find interesting to some degree. So there you go. That's 17 to 24, Benny.
Okay, 17 through 24. So we're pretty much going from the midway point down. Some folks might take a look at this list and think to themselves, how do we have 2 qualifiers for the playoffs this low? I'll give you something else to think about. How do we have 2 division champions this low? The crazy
they do both have both letters, don't they? X and Z.
That's correct. And now tell me if I'm starting to stray here, because I am having a little liquid dinner here. So if my thought process starts to get away from me, you can reel me back in.
Okay.
But when I look at Minnesota and Tampa Bay being not only playoff qualifiers, but also division championships, and being rated this low in our power rankings, I have to let people know that they have to take into consideration the other teams in these 2 divisions and what these 2 divisions kind of look like over the course of the season, not to mention that our power rankings only do the numbers. They don't take into effect wins and losses, correct?
They don't take into account wins and losses, right?
Okay. So that means that some funny things can happen, for lack of a better term. Right? But yeah, that's all I've got to say about that, in case anybody's wondering.
Well, like I said, sometimes when I'm doing these numbers, I actually start laughing. I'm like,
yeah, that gives me a chuckle. But I know that sometimes you can be the best of a bad situation.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned other people who are, or the teams that are in that division. I mean, you're talking like with the Vikings. We're talking about the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions, right?
And the Lions, right?
Yeah. So, and again, the Lions are, one of those teams with extreme differences. It's just like Minnesota, and Minnesota is being recognized for their record versus their net points now. They're being recognized.
That's my point. The record is going to say one thing. The net points is going to say something else. But they're both real entities, if I'm saying that correctly, and they're both real things. Okay, a team could be winning, but not doing that well as in the respect of the points that they're scoring and the points that they're giving up. So you'll see teams that are lower than them in the standings, but higher than them in our power rankings. That's what makes this so interesting to me. That's why I love what we do.
Well, Minnesota had been getting by the skin of their chinny chin, and it showed up in the numbers. Of course, it wasn't so much of a situation last week. We'll talk about that when we go to the matchup section and the Bias Plus reports. But yeah, kind of interesting. Let's go to 9 through 16, Benny. So we're in the top half now, and we're starting to see a little more, well, green. We still got a couple eliminated there, Vegas and Cleveland, which are just barely negative. So 9 through 16, let me go. The Patriots, the Lions, the Chargers, the Packers, Seattle, the Giants, congratulations, Las Vegas, and Cleveland. We're going from an average of plus 1.8 down to an average of minus 0.4 for Cleveland. Vegas is minus 0.3. So we have 1.8, 1.4, 0.6, 0.2 tied between Green Bay and Seattle. And your Giants, Benny, breaking even like a champ, man. Net point zero.
Zero on board.
Net point zero. Scoring wise, 9 through 16, you're looking at, again, Seattle now, again, up there offensively, averaging 24.3 points per game. And in that 24 point per game group, you've got Miami and Jacksonville also at 10th and 11th. Then you're at 23.9 points per game for Vegas. Chargers in Green Bay, 22.7 and 22.1. And then your Giants are 21.8. And if you slip over to the next column, you see your Giants again at 21.8. So
that's incredible. If I said to you at the beginning of a season, if an NFL team scored the same amount of points or average scoring the same amount of points that they average giving up over the course of a season, do you think they could make the playoffs? You would probably say no.
Yeah. If you said to me if they were negative, would they make the playoffs? I'd probably say no.
Exactly.
So, and even again, I always remind people the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings is an experiment. It's just something we started doing, something we started tracking and trying to gather information by tracking these statistics religiously. And it's actually brought us, a lot of information. And, sometimes I think, we say things one week and the rest of the world says it the following week. Because again, we're looking at real numbers. And I hear people talking about these teams and they talk about their defense in terms like, oh, the defense stinks or it's not real good.
Right.
But they're not specific. You know what I mean? If their defense is ranked 28th, that means one thing. If they're ranked 13th, that means something else,
right.
In terms of where they stand, and everything's relative. That's how I look at it, right? So we talked about defense. Philadelphia now coming in at 9th, okay, allowing 20.5 points per game, followed by, and I'll go 10 through 16, Denver, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and the Giants. That's 20.7 for number 10, Denver. Then you got 20.8, 20.9 twice. And then Washington comes in at 21.1, Tennessee 21.2, and your Giants at 21.8. So that's what they're allowing. And you see, again, these numbers are very close. On the scoring side, less than 3 points on average from 9 through 16 differentiates them. And for defense, what's that? Oh, that's less than 2 points between 9th place and 16th place. So it is, these teams are really tightening up their game. You got teams like Jacksonville that are finding themselves all of a sudden. Very interesting. You know, I told you about my neighbor across the driveway. The only Jacksonville Jaguar fan I know in Philly. Like, yeah, your team's doing pretty good. He's like, really? And he don't know. He ain't really.
He doesn't even know.
He
Oh,
ain't
come
paying
on.
that close attention.
What is he like? The logo or something?
Dude, I think he was a Steelers fan. You know, and I'm like, you jump from the Steelers to the Jacksonville, you know. Anyway, I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah, let's not.
In terms of turnovers here, we're all in the positive if you want to consider zero positive, but you're going from 0.3 down to zero with Green Bay, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Seattle. Your
I
Giants.
am going to consider zero a positive.
Okay.
It's not
Giants
a negative.
is not a negative. But is it even a number? I don't know. So 0.1 for your Giants and Minnesota tie, and then Cleveland and Buffalo at 0 even. So yeah, as long as you ain't on the negative side, then you know you're good. You know, you're breaking even. What you got for 9 through 16 here?
Well, the Chargers and my Giants were teams that were looking like they were going to kind of be on the bubble as we got down near the end of the season, but they have both clinched. So the teams that are on the bubble are these other guys here, the Lions, the Patriots, the Packers, and the Seahawks. So we'll talk about them a little bit later when we do the Bias Plus reports. And let's move on to that top 8.
Bam!
Wow, look at all that green. That's what I'm talking about.
The money. Well, at the top of the heat is Buffalo, averaging 10.5 net points, which means, again, that they're winning by an average of about a touchdown and a field goal. In second place, my beloved San Francisco 49ers at plus 9.3. Dallas at third place at plus 9.1, followed by Philadelphia plus 7.9, Kansas City at plus 6.8, Cincinnati at plus 5.7, Jacksonville at plus 3.1, and Baltimore at plus 2.9. Some interesting conversation. Did you hear what Baltimore's coach, when I think they were asking him about the Lamar situation, did you hear what he said? I was
I'm not sure.
surprised. It sounded like, well, let me put it this way. When I was listening to the commentators on TV, they made it seem as if the coach is getting a little fed up with the game as to what's going on with Lamar, but they're not sure if he's mad at management or Lamar. Who he's fed up with most.
So he's upset about how the contract negotiations are going, or when Lamar's going to be ready to play.
I think it's when Lamar's going to be ready to play, and I don't think Lamar's going to be ready to play. And they are qualified playoff team, so
yeah. Unfortunately,
there's a lot of advice in the media for Lamar to not play.
I'm hearing that too. And I was going to say, if it's not because of the contract negotiations or lack thereof, then they have something to do with his decision making at the moment. That's not a good thing for the Baltimore Ravens. I can understand why the coach is upset, but there's not a whole lot he can do about it. And I know he loves Lamar and he wants the best for Lamar, but he also has to take his team into consideration. These guys have been playing hard and they've been keeping their heads above water. They've been holding on tight in a very, very competitive AFC North division. They've been overtaken by the Bengals. If Lamar was to come back this weekend, they would be really happy about that. I have a personal feeling that he's waiting for the playoffs to start. They've already clinched. There's no need for him to come back in next week. What difference does it make? I don't think it makes much difference, but I'll have to go over my notes that I made when we get to the Bias Plus reports to actually give you a definitive yes or no on that. At this moment, though, Lamar's got to think about Lamar.
Well, that apparently is what's going on. And I think the irony in this whole thing is that the Ravens are the one team who built their entire offense around this Lamar, right? But yet don't seem to want to offer him the largest of the contracts or anything close to what Deshaun Watson got and things of that nature. It's almost as if they realize, well, you know, if we run this system, there's some liabilities there, you know, and we don't want to get caught up in like liabilities. So Lamar's kind of in a rock and a hard place in his style of play, you know, and in what they run. We talked about, was it the guy backing him up, Huntley, and all of that these guys do what Lamar does, that they've even, you know, were smart enough to build their backups to that. But, you know, it's hard to find a guy with Lamar's talents, you know.
Speed. Yeah, it's a little, it's like they're all in with the system that fits him the best, but they're not all in with him running the system for any length of time. Because let's face it, it's got to be a multi-year deal, and it's got to be a big deal. They know it.
It's the G word that's screwing up, called guarantees.
Guarantees, right. And nobody wants to guarantee a whole lot of money to a dual threat quarterback, but they all want a dual threat quarterback.
You know, I actually put out a post and I was saying, watch out for the teams that can play 11 on 11 football. And I listed your Giants as one of those teams.
True.
You know, so that's interesting. But let's finish 1 through 8 again is Buffalo, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Chiefs, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and Baltimore. And Jacksonville is the only team still has to qualify for the playoffs. They are the highest ranked in terms of net points for the unqualified. Scoring-wise, we're going from number 1, Kansas City, 29.1 points per game. So here's your top 8 scoring teams: Kansas City, Dallas, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Detroit, Cincinnati, San Fran got into the top 8, and Minnesota. So again, we talked about Detroit, we talked about Minnesota because we saw them in the bottom grouping for defense, but here they are in the top grouping offensively. And you know, again, 29 through 24, a little under 5 points on average, separating 1 through 8. So a little more of a spread. It's hard to get in the top 8. That's no joke.
Right.
I have to say, my Niners were not in the top 8 until one Mr. Brock Purdy arrived, and they've steadily risen in terms of their net points. I find that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, we are still number 1, San Fran allowing 16.5 points per game, but that is actually about 2 points higher than last week after giving up all of those points to one Jarrett Stidham, which I'll let you talk about later. Jarrett/Pat Mahomes Stidham. I thought that was hilarious. Buffalo coming in second place, giving up 17.5 points per game, followed by Baltimore. You said they were playing hard. In 4th place, allowing 18 points per game. And the Jets, 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 the only team I had any family that played for. And they're allowing 19.1 points per game. Patriots, 19.5. Dallas, 19.8. Cincinnati, 20.4. And 8th place, Tampa Bay, 20.5. I think Tampa Bay has risen a bit defensively. They're playing a little bit better. So 29 through 24 offensively, we said about 5 points. Defensively, 16 through 20, about 4 points, not much difference. And in turnover differential, Dallas is in first place at a plus 0.7. We have a two-way tie between San Fran and the Eagles at 0.6. Another two-way tie between the Patriots and Baltimore at 0.4. And then a three-way tie for 6th through 8th between Detroit, Chargers, and Jacksonville at plus 0.3 points per game. That represents your top 8 teams in the NFL based on average net points, points for, points against, and turnover differential, Mr. Dickerson.
Okay. So the season is basically over. There is one more week, which turns out is going to be a pretty important week for a lot of teams. So when you look at these power rankings, and I don't know what they're going to look like next week, but right now, when you look at these power rankings, this is what I see right off the bat. These top 8 teams are the strongest. I'm not talking about wins and losses here. These are the strongest teams left in the NFL going into the playoffs. And the order that they're in, I have no problem with. I'm sure there are going to be some Eagle fans that felt a few weeks ago like Philadelphia should have been up a little higher because of their record. But when you understand the net point power rankings and you look at this, you'll see that everybody is basically where they're supposed to be as far as how well they're playing and the points that they're scoring and the points that they're giving up. Not to mention the little fluctuation in their turnover differential. Now, we'll say this. Teams 1 through 6 all have an opportunity to get home field advantage throughout, meaning the number 1 seed, the first round bye, and home field throughout. That has not been determined yet, and only 2 teams can get it. And 6 teams have a shot at it. Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. None of them have locked up the number 1 seed in either conference yet. That's why week 18 is going to be big.
Yeah, week 18 is going to be big. And, you know, the NFL spiked the punch for week 18. Because what you're going to notice is pretty much all of these games are division contests.
It's great.
I know. You ready to get to them?
Even the crappy games are division contests.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
Yeah.
On the top end, they're vying for those playoff positions. And on the bottom end, they're vying for those draft positions.
Well, yeah, there may be somebody vying for them. We'll see who tanks and who doesn't. But yeah, there's some tanks coming up. Trust me.
You know what I'm saying here. You know, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's some questions. And I was thinking about the Colts. They're already in last place. So, you know, they're as far as our net points are concerned, they're in last place.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me, you know, that they wind up, because you're not going to be able to tell if they're tanking. You're not going to be able to say they tanked. They didn't play hard. Like they just played like themselves, you know. They did their thing. So
right.
we shall see how that all turns out. Let's talk about next week's game. And again, Benny, this is the final week of the regular season. It's
correct.
I'm
just happy a lot of these games mean something. Usually when we get to the last game of the season, the majority of games don't mean anything. But this season is different. The majority of these games does mean something to a lot of teams.
Yeah, well, you got a point there, you know. And that's why, you know, some of these, how many positions are left? About 4 or 5? Somewhere in that area.
Like open seeds?
Like, yes, you know, positions in the playoffs that haven't yet.
There's a few.
Yeah.
Not to mention what I just said about the number 1 seeds.
Right. Right. I might need to take a quick look at that so we'll have an idea.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have told you. Remember how I was telling you I was trying to stay away from playoff scenarios?
Yeah.
Everything I got now is playoff scenarios.
Well,
I'm loaded.
yeah,
I'm loaded with playoff scenarios.
the options aren't as mind-boggling as they were.
Exactly. That's why I did it. It's narrowed down now. The only thing I didn't consider was ties.
Mm.
Because they always throw ties in there. So I pretty much held it to wins and losses. But I'll explain myself before I say what I'm going to say.
Okay. I can understand that. Well, I'm trying to make that move and it's not happening as quickly as I want. So let's get ready to go to the net point pal. To the Bias Plus reports. And then if it comes up, we'll handle it then. All right.
Okay.
Game numero uno. I do believe this will be the Thursday night game. Is there a Thursday night game? I gotta make sure I'm looking at.
I think this is the Thursday night game.
Okay.
No. This game is Saturday.
Saturday.
The Thursday night games are over. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I kept thinking to myself, yeah, I don't know, and I'm one of those people. I miss like when we have a Thursday night game and a Monday night game and they don't happen. I miss those.
Oh yeah, sure. You get used to it over the course of the season. You're like, oh, it's Thursday night. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Right.
It's not happening. So that's always a part of it. But yeah, it's basically I do believe Saturday and Sunday. And that's how things are sort of set up. I understand, I'll just say this real quick, that the NFL, I saw a report just now, is at least starting to negotiate on what they're going to do as far as the rest of the season is concerned.
Okay.
So they're kind of there. And when I looked at the schedule, just double checking here, like I said, Saturdays and Sundays. So let's talk about Chiefs at Raiders. Benny, Bias Plus score of 7.5. About a touchdown. Favors the Chiefs.
Okay. So it just so happens. Well, let me put it this way. Okay. Again, I'm going to talk about playoff scenarios here and where teams are and what they're attempting to do as far as making it to the playoffs or improving their seeding going into the playoffs. So let me first say a lot of what happens in the AFC will depend on whether or not the Buffalo-Cincinnati game is played. As far as I know right now, and please don't quote me, but as far as I know right now, there's three options. They can either completely cancel the game, they can call it a tie, or they can actually finish the game or play the game at a later date, which, of course, if they decide to do that, would have to take place before the playoffs take place because of the implications. But that game has a lot of implications. So what they decide could change what it is that we're talking about here. Okay, so now I got that out of the way. So now, if Kansas City is to keep their hopes alive for the number one seed in the AFC and the first round bye and home field advantage that comes along with it, they at the very least have to beat the Raiders. So they got to go into Vegas, beat the Raiders, and they probably have an excellent chance without us knowing what's going to happen with Buffalo and Cincinnati of getting that number one seed. Of course, the Buffalo-Cincinnati decision could change all that. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind. Now, the only thing about the Chiefs is they come in looking a little shaky after a sluggish effort against Denver last week. We've seen the defense struggle plenty of times. But last week we saw some sloppy mechanics and an end zone interception by Mahomes, a fumble punt return that led to a Broncos touchdown, a bad snap on a point after attempt, and a blocked field goal. Not good for the Chiefs. Little shaky there. I don't know what's going on, but I know there's a lot of Chiefs fans out there. I know a lot of people really praise the Chiefs. They're 13-3. It's a foregone conclusion with some folks that they're going to the Super Bowl. Let me warn you ahead of time, everything is not great in Kansas City. Now, the Raiders were eliminated from playoff contention last week at home against the 49ers, but they didn't go down without a fight. Jarrett Stidham started at quarterback for the bench Derek Carr, and he led a valiant effort. He threw 3 touchdowns against the great Niners defense, which I think has only happened twice this season. I forget who else did. Somebody else did it. The two teams traded touchdowns during the final 2 minutes of regulation, and a Niners interception in overtime led to the game-winning touchdown. Led to the game-winning field goal for the Niners. So, yeah, the Raiders didn't go down without a fight. But that being said, the Chiefs need this game to keep their biggest playoff hopes alive. I think the Chiefs will handle the Raiders with no problem.
We talked about how many more spots were available in the playoffs.
Yes.
According to the NFL's website, on the AFC side, 2
Okay.
playoff berths are available, and on the NFC side, 1.
Okay.
So,
and I think that one on the NFC side, off the top of my head, is the final seed, the number 7 seed.
right. Exactly.
Probably the same on the AFC.
Yeah.
So okay. So we'll talk about that.
All righty. So you're going with the bias, going with the Chiefs.
Right.
Next up, Titans at Jaguars. Bias plus score of 8.3 favors the Jaguars. So again, let me just mention, Benny, for anyone who may be just jumping in and saying, okay, what the heck are these guys talking about the bias plus? Well, we just did the net point power rankings. So when you're looking at net points, what the bias plus does is it looks at the difference in net points between the two players. Again, the theory behind what we do is that if I'm a team and I've been winning by an average of 25 and you're a team and you've been winning by an average of 5 and we play each other, then the team with the greater net points would be favored by the difference in the points, and that would be 20. So we would be favored, that team that with the 25 would be favored by a bias of 20. And then the plus represents the differential in turnovers that we between the two teams. And we all combine all of those numbers, and we use what's called the Pythagorean calculation to take those turnovers to points and put it all together. So Titans at Jaguars would mean that the Jaguars are about 8.3 net points better. Again, average because you got to add in turnovers there. Than the Jaguars than the Titans rather over the season. And so, thank you for letting me just use this as an example. But who do you have for this, Betty?
Well, just do that right there and do that right there. Okay, so for the Titans, last week's loss to Dallas was actually meaningless. And they did, in fact, rest some of their players, Derrick Henry specifically, for this week, because it all comes down to this game versus Jacksonville. If the Titans win, they clinch a playoff berth as the AFC South champions. If they lose, they're done. The Jags game against Houston was really meaningless also. But the Jags came out with their guns blazing against the Texans and all their starters, and they crushed the Texans, who actually have been playing pretty feisty over the last couple of weeks. Now, a win versus Tennessee makes the Jags AFC South champs. A loss, and they still have a slim chance to make the postseason. And for some reason, I did not note what that chance is, but before we're done, I can look that up. Okay. So I am going to take the Jaguars at home in this game to win it, secure the AFC South championship, and make the playoffs.
Who do you expect to be quarterbacking the Titans this week?
That's a good question. I believe it'll be Joshua Dobbs.
Okay, I believe so. I do believe I saw that also. So again, and just to say, even in a losing effort, to come in on the short notice that he came in and be able to go on a football field and run a professional football team offense, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
We saw him make mistakes, and we know how smart he is. I think he was like an aeronautics major or some ridiculous thing like that. But real
He's
smart.
Been around a little bit.
Been around a while, But to bring him in, I think he had a week to absorb the playbook before they put him on the field. So that's pretty good. You're going with the bias. 8.3 favoring the Jaguars. Next up. Okay, Ravens at Bengals. Bias plus score of 2 favors the Bengals.
Big game. Big game. Both teams' final playoff scenarios are contingent on the decision with the Buffalo-Cincinnati game. Let's get this straight. You're going to hear me say this a few more times when it comes to some of these AFC teams. Okay? Again, things could change after week 18, depending on what they decide to do with the Buffalo-Cincinnati game. But both teams' positions become much better with a win in this game. So the bottom line is Ravens 10-6, Bengals 11-4, vying for the AFC North Championship, and possibly, at least for the Bengals, a number 1 seed. I'm going to go with the Bengals at home to win this game.
You just like the Bengals. You said it last week.
Well, I do like the Bengals. I think they're getting hot at the right time. The defense is improved. Yeah, I do like the Bengals.
You admit it.
Sure. Well, you want me to? I thought you liked it when I went with the bias.
No, I'm teasing because last week you called him like the other woman. He's like, I'm slowly falling in love with the.
Oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Okay, then it's pretty obvious I do like the Bengals.
Yeah, well, something. I mean, again, you got your classic option offense. The Bengals are going to have to handle that, but you got Joe Cool, for the Bengals on quarterbacking those guys, man. So 2 really good teams, and bias plus score of 2 means that what? An average, these teams are only separated by an average of about 2 points if you don't include the turnover differential over the year in terms of how badly they're beating everybody else. So
right.
Yeah, and the Bengals, the Ravens defense is really good, and the Bengals are there also. So, but the Bengals kind of came on a little later in the season. They got off to a slower start, and now they got the foot on the pedal, man. So I will be looking forward to seeing this game. Buccaneers at Falcons, talking about a small bias plus. The score is 0.9, but it's favoring the Buccaneers here. What you got?
Well, let me see. Oh, we can get through this one real quick. The Bucs are the NFC South champs. They're locked into the number 4 seed. This game actually means absolutely nothing. So the only scenario you have here is possibly the Bucs resting people. If they do, in fact, rest people, it's possible the Falcons could maybe beat them. I have to go with the assumption that they're going to play strong and try to win the game. The Bucs are the better team, so I'm going to call for Bucs win. This one's hard to call for me because, again, it's Wednesday. I have no idea who's going to play and who's not. There's a chance that they rest starters. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So that makes it hard to pick this game. So I'm just going to go with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, go with the honest deal for right now. I mean, let's face it, it is very difficult relative to that. So this is one of the 1 o'clock Sunday games. So There you go. Next up, Patriots at Bills. Bias plus score 7.1 favors the Bills. And again, these are teams that, both teams were in the top relative to their net points. Buffalo's number 1, New England is number 9. New England really depending on that defense ranked 5th, but Buffalo's defense is ranked 2nd, whereas Buffalo's averaging a little over 28 points per game. The Patriots are only averaging about 21. So that's your big difference there in terms of the ability to score those points. And you got an 11-on-11 capable team that you have to deal with the Buffalo Bills. That's one of those 11-on-11 teams that at any time the quarterback decides just to take this game over and start running around, driving everybody crazy.
Right. So I don't think there's something I kind of left out when I was talking about where these teams are going to be seeded and how they can achieve certain seeds and playoff expectations. The NFL does take into consideration ties. I do not. Okay. So I just want to let everybody know that if I say so-and-so can get so-and-so if they win, and so-and-so can get so-and-so if they lose, that's as far as I chose to take it. Ties can come into consideration, but I don't expect there to be a bunch of ties. There hardly ever is a tie, so I don't expect it to be a tie. So I'm not even going to bring that into the conversation. Now, that being said, Patriots are 8-8. They're still alive. Bills are 12-3. New England can lock up the number 7 seed in the AFC if they were to beat the Buffalo Bills this weekend. Buffalo's fate can't fully be finalized until a decision on their game with Cincinnati has been made. But a win over the Patriots gives them their best chance to have a shot at the number 1 seed, which is exactly what I believe they want. Why would they not?
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Take the Bills.
Taking the Bills, going with the bias. We've got this warming period that has come along with us, and I was just trying to take a quick look to see, what the weather's going to be. We know how it seems to more negatively affect the Patriots with Mr. Mac Jones versus, Josh Allen, who seems to be comfortable playing in ridiculous weather. But I'm looking at in the 30s, mid 30s and stuff like that. They are the Patriots, so it's not like cold weather is, not foreign to them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So weather shouldn't be an issue anyway. So going with the Bills, going with the bias. Next up, Vikings at Bears. Bias plus score 7.2 favors the Vikings.
Okay.
Do they have anything to play for? That is the question.
The Vikes are NFC North champs, and they can lock up the number 2 seed with a win and a San Francisco loss.
Oh, they're toast. Not going to happen.
So obviously they're in the playoffs. What they're shooting for is the highest seed they can get. The highest seed they can possibly get is the number 2 seed, but they will need to beat the Bears and they will need the 49ers to lose in order for them to get the number 2 seed. If that does not happen, they will probably end up with the 3 seed.
Okay.
But there's some other things that could happen that could change that. So I'm looking at best case scenarios. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to pick a game. I'll pick a team. Take the Viking.
Going with the Viking.
Yeah.
With the bias. Going with your boy Kirk Cousins. All right. Texans at Colts. Bias plus score 3.1 favors the Texans. Now, Ben, let me just mention again, this is one of those situations where both teams, are in the lower end of what's going on in terms of net points and everything else. What you're looking at here is Houston being minus 8.3 and Indianapolis being minus 8.6 in terms of net points. But Houston is better by about 0.7 turnover differential. Also in the negative, but better.
Right.
Than the Colts. And that makes up the difference in terms of the bias plus score, which got the 3.1. It's about a field goal. It's at the Colts. That's what you normally give the home team. But could this be two teams that are vying for draft position, playing each other?
Well, when you say vying for draft position, you're talking about a team that's maybe possibly what we call tanking or kind of losing on purpose.
So, I don't really want to label these teams for that, but these are the teams.
Well, that's what, when you say vying for draft position.
I'm being facetious, yes.
Oh, okay.
Being facetious.
Okay.
Number one, if any team was going to try to lose, it would have been the Texans, and they've been trying to win like a champ. Okay.
They've been playing hard. Yeah.
They've been playing hard. Now the Colts they're just dysfunctional to some degree. So, I don't think they're necessarily trying to be bad, but it just turns out that way. But these are both teams that are high in terms of being their probability of getting that number one draft pick.
Well, let's look at it this way. Texans are on the road. They got to go to Indianapolis. Both teams have been eliminated from playoff contention. But it is a division matchup, which means it may actually be a competitive game. And this is one of those games that gives some guys a chance to put some stuff on tape. You never know when you're on a team like one of these two teams if you're going to be there next year. So you want to get stuff on tape for free agency, trades, whatever. That being said, I like the way the Texans have been closing out the season, so I'm going to take the Texans and go with the bias.
Going with the bias, going with the Texans. All right, Houston. So when I look at the coach for the Texans, I think about what's the name with the Sixers, the beard.
Oh, right. He's got like the perfect old guy beard. I wish my beard was like that, man. I wish I could grow that beard. That's the most beautiful.
Really? You would? I'm not a beard guy.
Lovey Smith got the most beautiful beard ever.
There you go. There's something for what's his name with the Sixers? Harden
to look forward to when he gets older.
When it starts to turn gray.
Guess what? I bet you $1 to a donut. He's already got gray and he colors his.
You're probably right. What's that stuff, that men's stuff, you just brush it in or whatever?
Yeah, you just brush it in.
I was telling my daughter there was this movie and it was hilarious. I forget the guy, but the main character in the movie was this real self-centered, I'm so beautiful thinking guy who really wasn't, you know what I mean? Right. And he's always going to approach this woman, the women, and he's in this swim place and he sees this woman and she's on the other side of the pool. She's sitting there, long legs, looking beautiful. And here he comes walking and he sees her on the other side of the pool. And he had just put all of this like black stuff in his hair and everything, make himself look great. And the fool jumps in the pool. And you see this shadow of black follow him across this pristine pool. No. It's hilarious. It is too funny. It's something I would do. No, I don't even use that stuff. Anywho, Texans at Colts. The beard is favored by a bias plus score of 3.1. Ben's going with the Texans.
Yep.
New Jersey Nets at Dolphins. Miami, Tua is not playing. Bias plus score is 0.5. That's half a point. Favors the Dolphins. Holy mackerel.
I'm going to assume that this is going to be Mike White versus Skylar Thompson.
Mm.
The Jets are eliminated from playoff contention.
Skylar?
However,
You don't think Teddy Two Gloves is playing?
no, he's messed up his pinky.
Okay, I thought maybe it was something. Okay, go ahead.
He's got a dislocated pinky. I don't know if he's going to recover in time. Dislocated pinky is probably a little painful. I'm just saying.
Well, I know for me it would be.
Right. But I'm sure if he can go, they'll probably put him out there because they have an opportunity to clinch the number 7 seed if they beat the Jets. However, they also need New England to lose to Buffalo. So unfortunately, Miami does not have their fate in their own hands. But like I said, they got to beat the Jets and they got to hope that New England loses in order to clinch the 7th seed. That being said, I believe Mike White can beat Teddy Two Gloves or Skylar Thompson. I'm taking the Jets.
Jets, Jets. Hey, I would think that, well, I don't have to think. Let me look at this real quick. Jets defense was rated 4th. Miami's defense is rated 27th.
Right.
So as long as the Jets can score some points because Miami's offense is rated 10th and the Jets offense is rated 27th. But
yeah, the Jets defense is a very proud unit. Sauce Gardner and them boys would like nothing better than to beat the Cheetah and the Waddle.
The Cheetah and the Waddle, and that's my Niners East team right there. So, we'll see. If the Dolphins are smart, man, and they get that running game going, they might be able to keep Mike White from doing some Mike White things.
Well, they better.
Hey.
It's taking them a few weeks to get smart.
Hey, I was just saying, he needs to. That's for sure. He needs to use them guys. All right, next up. Ben, first of all, Ben's going with the Jets, going against the bias. It's only a half a point, so it's hard to be too wrong with that. Panthers at Saints. Bias plus score 1.3 favors the Panthers. Sam Darnold. I was getting ready to include him in the teams that play 11 on 11, but he started throwing the ball. You kind of mentioned when I was talking about, I said, did he turn into Sam Darnold? I was talking about running the ball, but he was passing that ball, trying to catch up. So tell us about what you got for the Panthers and the Saints.
Okay, once again, real quick, both teams are eliminated from playoff contention, but this is another division matchup, which means it has the potential to be a good competitive game. And again, it's a chance for some guys to put some stuff on tape, considering that both teams are out of it and some guys may be coming up on free agency or possibly be involved in trades. So they're going to want to play well. Nobody's going to want to slouch in a game like this. You want to make yourself as, look as good as you possibly can in case you end up being on another roster next year. Tough one to call, though. I think I will probably. Who's got the bias?
Panthers, 1.3.
Panthers actually have the bias.
3.
All right.
The Panthers
although I tried
and win, right? Weren't they the bias plus buster?
Yes, they were. And I try not to go with my heart on these things as opposed to using my head. My head tells me the Saints at home, especially after the impressive win they put on the Eagles last week. But I like Steve Wilkes. I'm hoping that they will keep him on as the head coach. I already heard that they've had discussions with Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
But I like Steve Wilkes. I like what he's done. I'm impressed with Steve Wilkes. I'm going to take the Panthers. I'm going to take the Panthers. I'm going with the bias.
Going with the bias, going with the Panthers. All right. Well, there's logic and emotion in that decision there.
True.
Logic of the bias and the emotion of Ben wanting Steve Wilkes or maybe Steve Wilkes will get a job someplace else, if not with the Panthers.
And perhaps, but I think he's earned that.
I hear that the Broncos are sparing no expense on the next coach. So that's
they're going to go after a big name.
Well, before we do that, let's talk about the Browns at the Steelers. Bias plus score of 2.1 favors the Brownies.
Really?
Yeah, favors the Browns. Well, the Steelers struggled early on, man.
Yeah, but they've been playing well. They've got some upset wins.
They got some upset wins, but again, many of those cases, an upset meant it was close. So if you didn't have a great start, and then you had a lot of close games, that's not going to help your net points too much. The Cleveland came in 16th in net points at -0.4. Pittsburgh came in 25th at -3.3.
Okay, so all that being said, let's remember they beat the Ravens last week 16-13. I'm just saying.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Mike Tomlin to 8-8, which is 500, which means he still hasn't had a losing season yet. And they're going to try to make sure of that this week. And Cleveland has been eliminated from playoff contention, and the Steelers are actually still alive. So not only have they held on to making sure that Mike Tomlin does not ever have a losing season, but they still have an opportunity to grab the number 7 seed in the AFC if they win. But their destiny is not in their own hands. They need to win, and the Dolphins and Patriots both need to lose in order for them to make the playoffs. All they can do is do what they can do, and that is to beat the Browns. And I'm picking the Steelers to beat the Browns.
Going against the bias, going with the Steelers. I said to my brother-in-law, who was a Steeler fan, I said, you know what I call your quarterback? He said, what's that? I said, Kenny the fake slide guy, Wicked Pickett. He's like, what? You didn't know about the fake slide? He's like, no. I was like, he's like, I have to go back and check that out.
He doesn't know about his college career.
You know what I'm saying?
Got to go back.
He likes his coach. He likes his quarterback though. But I was like, yeah, you got to check that out. He's the fake slide guy. You got to like that. All right, going with the Steelers, right?
Yes, sir.
One against the bias, saying they are not going to let their coach have a losing season. It ain't going to happen. All right, we shall see. We shall see. Chargers at Broncos. I just talked about the Broncos not sparing any expense on the next head coach. Bias plus score, however, 6.9, about a touchdown and an extra point favors the Chargers.
Bro, I'm done with the Broncos.
Again?
I'm again. Now, forget about that. Chargers got to go to Mile High. They're going to win. I'm taking the Chargers. I'll tell you that right off the top. Here's the scenario. They've locked up a playoff spot. That I'm happy about because the Chargers were lagging along during the season, looking like they might actually not make the playoffs. But they played well enough. They didn't play as well as I thought they would play this season, but they made it, okay? Now, where they end up ultimately may be determined by the decision made on the Buffalo-Cincinnati game. Just like a lot of other teams' fate or their final fate will depend on what the decision is on what to do with the Buffalo-Cincinnati game. But right now, they can grab the number 5 seed with a win or a Baltimore loss. And if they lose, a Ravens win would get them the 6th seed. So they're locked in, but whether they get the 5th seed or the 6th seed depends on whether they win or lose.
Okay.
That being said, take the Chargers.
Take the Chargers.
Yeah, this is, in a way, this is hard, but it's kind of easy because the teams that have something to play for, I'm picking them to win these games. They got a lot to play for.
Motivation.
Yep.
You know. And the only motivation the Broncos has is spoiler and get something on tape.
Right.
All right. Ben, you ready for this game?
Yes, I am.
Giants at Eagles. Bias plus score of 9.9 favors the Eagles. Put a B in front of it. No, I'm just joking. Eagles. There you go. What you gonna do with this one?
All right. So it does my heart good to say that my Giants are locked into the number 6 seed. That's it. They're not vying for anything. They're locked in. How they plan to approach this game as far as resting players or not resting players remains to be seen. I have no idea what they're going to do. Personally, I hope that they play the starters and go into the playoffs on a roll. I don't think they need rest. I think they need to play guys. If there's some guys that were injured and are possibly ready to play, I would maybe keep them out and bring them back come playoff time. But I wouldn't rest anybody that's healthy. That's just me. I don't know what they're going to do. The Eagles have clinched the playoff spot, obviously, but the NFC East title and the number 1 seed are still up for grabs. They can win the division and they can grab the number 1 seed simply by winning. The Eagles' fate is in their own hands. I know that makes Eagle fans very happy. Okay? All they got to do is win, and they can get everything they want. But if they lose, they can still win the division if Dallas loses, and they can still get the number 1 seed if Dallas and the 49ers lose. So that's how it's laid out for the Eagles. If they win, it's all good. But if they don't win, they still have a chance to get everything they want. But it's going to take 2 losses, one by the Cowboys and one by your 49ers. I know you're not going to let me down. That being said, I'm not going to do this one by my heart. I'm going to do this by my, no, I can't do that. I'm taking the Giants. And I'm going to say this right now. If the Eagles win that game, nobody's going to be surprised. I won't be surprised. But if the Giants win this game, I'm wearing Giants gear to the gym every day next week. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to be in Florida next week.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. You know how many Eagles fans are on my team? Yo, we're going to be locked in, bro. We're going to be locked into that game. Do not let the Giants win this game. Oh, my God. Oh, they're going to be buying me beer from now till 2024.
Now, what I understand, Saquon had a bit of a stinger at one point.
Stinger. I had stingers. Stinger's nothing.
I had a stinger. Kept me out of work for a while.
That's work. Wouldn't keep you off the football field. You only play 1 game a week.
All right, there you go. So you don't think they need to keep him out?
I wouldn't.
Okay. All right, there you go. So Ben's going against the bias, going with the Giants over the Eagles. And again, I did talk to our friend Mark He talked about the Eagles, and basically, as far as the Eagles are concerned, he just is the worst fan in the world. I mean,
Giving up?
what did he say about the backup quarterback for the Eagles? He couldn't coach a high school team. The coaches ain't squat. The coordinators ain't squat. He is the ideal Eagle fan. And I told him, there's nothing makes me laugh more than to hear Eagle fans excoriate their team. I think it's hilarious.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? How can you talk about your team one week like they're the greatest thing since 2017? They're even better than the Super Bowl team. Oh my God, we have a record number of sacks. Oh my God, Miles Sanders has 1,000 yards. Oh my God, we have the number one offensive line in football. Oh my God. And then 2 weeks later, we don't have a backup. Our defensive coordinator is an idiot. We don't run the ball. Wait, you don't run the ball?
Well,
you have a 1,000-yard rusher and the best offensive line in football. You don't run the ball.
so much of this again, and that's why I'm continuing to talk about 11 on 11 football, because it changes the game in so many ways. And I said to him, I said, if Jalen is out there, I believe that running lanes get wider. It changes the defense's aggression. They can't just go hog wild at like he's a pocket quarterback that's going to stand out there. And I think it really does change how efficiently the offense operates. And then again, he can always just take the game in his own hands and run the ball. You know what I mean? And it really changes things. And I'm interested to see, as we move into the playoffs, how many 11 on 11 capable teams are there and how they moving forward
Right.
with that. Like the Bengals are not what I would call an 11 on 11 team.
Right.
But they can operate at a high level,
Absolutely.
within the more conventional status. Not every team can make that. Huh?
Same thing with the Niners.
Yeah, and not every team, not every team can make that adjustment. I think that's part of the problem with the Eagles. And like you said last week when they asked Minshew, about the game plan, he says the same game plan. Well, he's not going to play 11 on 11,
Right. Minus the design quarterback runs.
Right.
So let's go back to what Micah Parsons said that was such a big controversy for a week and a half. He said, it's not Hurts, it's the system. Guess what? He was 100% wrong. It's not the system, it's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a great player right now for the Eagles. He probably should be the MVP. He means more to the Eagles than any other quarterback means to the team outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, to me. Without Jalen Hurts,
MVP.
Excuse me?
Which is his main competition for MVP.
Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Well, overall, but I think, don't they have MVPs for each conference?
No, I think it's a league MVP.
League MVP? Well, if it's league MVP, that's his only competition.
Right. That's his competition right there. So, but again, like I said, Josh Allen changes the game when he goes in, when they start going into 11 on 11 mode. And when it gets tight, they can always do that. Not every team can do that. Some teams have to execute, at a higher level. So we'll keep an eye on that. I just think that's a phenomenon that is encroaching on the NFL. And I'm just trying to be aware of it as I'm watching these games and wondering why certain things work and certain things don't work. And like I said, the Saints are that team that at any moment, because of their two quarterback systems, can go into an 11 on 11 mode if they want to, and they just change quarterbacks.
Right.
The Hurts, Fields, Josh, they're both the pocket and the 11 on 11 running quarterback. So Very interesting. But you are going with the Giants
Yep.
over the Eagles. Okay. All right. If you want to go that way. Cardinals at 49ers. Come on over to Levi Stadium, he says. Bias plus score 17.4 favors the Niners. That's actually scary. And I think the scariest part about this is that this could be J.J. Watt's last game. And I'm sure he wants to make a spectacle of himself if he at all can. So it should be very interesting. I do think that I was in a way glad to see Purdy have the what do you call it? The challenges, we'll say, that he had against the Raiders, having to come back. They were down, at one particular point, and he had to engineer the comeback. And it was as far as I was concerned, it was a combination of skill and luck. He had a few plays that was, as far as I was concerned, was just luck. That could have went either way. Sure. And so, the Niners pulled it out because the Niners, that's what they do. Cardinals at 49ers, that's a pretty big bias plus so far. I think it's the biggest that I've seen this weekend favoring the Niners. Benny, who you got?
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned Purdy and his game last week versus the Raiders. I thought the Raiders played extremely hard, far harder and far better with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback than I thought they would. And Brock Purdy answered the call time and time again. So that was a big test for him, a big test for the Niners overall. And they passed with pretty flying colors for the most part. I know you're saying they had some luck with them, but guess what? My definition of luck when it comes to football is when preparation meets opportunity. And they took care of that. So they deserve that luck. Now, the Cardinals obviously have been eliminated, but the Niners have a whole bunch to play for. The NFC West champs are clearly getting hot at the right time, having won their last 9 in a row. That is a big deal. And for those of you who think that may not be a big deal or don't understand why that is a big deal, I will just reference the last 2 New York Giants Super Bowl wins over the New England Patriots. Those teams started off mediocre, got a little better during midseason, and then at the tail end of the season started heating up, took that hot streak to the Super Bowl, and won Super Bowl titles with Eli getting MVPs. I don't care if you don't like Eli. I don't care if you don't like the Giants. They got hot at the right time. And right now, that's where the Niners are sitting. Now, they still have a shot at the number 1 seed, but they need to win their game, and they need the Eagles to lose.
That'd be a Ben Dickerson dream, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. I like the Niners. I like your team. I'm talking about your team all the time.
That's what I'm saying. You do.
Y'all have a shot to get the number 1 seed. You already got your division championship. Home field advantage throughout and a first round bye. The best of the best. Take care of your business, beat the Cardinals, and then if I come through and beat the Eagles, you got it. All right, we're in this together, bro.
We're in this together.
We're in this together.
Hilarious. All right. Oh, I think I just moved it by accident. So you're going with the bias, going with the Niners.
Right.
And then next up, Rams at Seahawks again. Another division contest, bias plus score of 6 favors the Seahawks.
Interesting game here. Obviously, the Rams have been eliminated. Seattle is still alive for a playoff spot. Good for them. They can grab the number 7 seed, but they don't have their own destiny in their own hands, unfortunately. But they do need to win. So if they beat the Rams, they'll have to wait and see and hope that Green Bay loses. If they beat the Rams and Green Bay loses, The Seahawks are in. Bam. Take the Seahawks.
Going with the Seahawks. All right. All right. Ah, yes. Well, Seahawks are net point 0.2 because, again, they're one of those teams with great scoring. They were ranked 9th offensively and 24th defensively. That's the only scary part about that. With the Rams having not a lot to play for, they could go out there and go ham. But I expect that the Seahawks should prevail. Okay, next up. Cowboys come on, say it with me, Benny. The Commanders. Bias plus score 16.1 favors the Cowboys over the Commanders. Yeah, they took a look at Carson Wentz and they're like, nah, that's okay. We'll go back to Heineke.
Bro, Adam Schefter reported the Commanders are starting some dude named Sam Howell at quarterback.
Are you serious?
Some dude, as me and my daughter would say. If people say, who's Sam Howell? We would say, he's some dude.
Some dude. Sam Howell's got how many years in the league?
I have no clue.
He's been around.
I think I've heard his name before.
Okay.
But not in the sense that he actually made any noise.
So he's not going with Heineke or Wentz.
Nah.
He's doing a Titans deal. Let's just bring in another guy.
Tanking, bro. They're tanking. That's a tank move.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Commanders are looking for a higher playoff seat, a higher draft position. But this actually turns out to be a big game for the Cowboys. I don't think the Commanders are going to lay down. I believe Sam Howell will come in and try to lead them, and they will try to win the game.
Oh, he's a rookie, Benny.
Oh, there you go. That's even better. That's even better. That's one of those we got to see what we got moves. Okay? So, big game for the Cowboys. Big game because they can still win the NFC East, which I know is a big deal for them. And if they win and the Eagles lose, they can grab the number 1 seed with, wait. Let me get this right. They can win the NFC East if they win and the Eagles lose. They can grab the number 1 seed with a win and a loss by the Eagles and the Niners.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So if you guys somehow were to lose, you would open the door for the Eagles and the Cowboys. And it would come down to which one of them won and which one lost. If they both win, the Eagles get it. So the Cowboys need to win. They need the Eagles to lose. And they need you to lose also. So the chances of that, I would say, personally, are slim to none. They're not going to both lose. It's a possibility that one of them loses. I believe the Eagles have a better chance of losing than the Niners do. So the chance of the Cowboys getting the number 1 seed is pretty slim. But the chance of the Cowboys winning the NFC East is pretty good. I'm taking the Cowboys to beat the Commanders and handle their part of the deal. And then I'll have to scoreboard watch and see what the Eagles and the Niners do.
A quick look here sees Sam Howell coming out of North Carolina in the 2022 NFL draft. He got picked round 5, pick number 144. So wow. He's a 5th rounder coming in. And hey, you never know, man. You bring these guys in. You got a Brock
Sam,
the last pick of the draft, doing well. Big surprise. You never know. And they have 0 tape on them, so maybe from the preseason or something like that.
Right.
So we shall see. But you're going to go with the Cowboys.
Yep.
Which makes very much sense. Packers at Lions. Benny, is the final game of the regular season. It is the Sunday night game. There is no Monday night game.
I know. No more Thursday nights, no more Monday
No
nights.
more Monday nights. But Detroit at Green Bay. I expect fireworks. Bias plus score of 1.2. That slim margin favors the Lions. And like I said last week, I said, is Kirk Cousins going to feel like the best in the division if they lose to the Packers? And they really lost to the Packers. But in this situation, you got a team that knows how to score points. Detroit is fifth in scoring, 27.1 points per game. They are 29th, however, in defense, giving up 25.7 points per game. The Packers are 14th in scoring. They're putting up 22.1, and they're 17th in defense. Their defense has played better. They've gotten better, allowing 21.9 points per game. So you got an offense that's scoring 27, a defense that's allowing 21, and then a defense that's allowing 25, but an offense that's only scoring 22. Packers are going to run the ball, probably. That seems to have worked for them. And as far as running backs are concerned, Mr. Swift from the Philly area, whoo, man, he's been a bit spectacular, hasn't he?
We had a good game last week, that's for sure. Both teams are sitting at 8-8. I would say this is a pretty good game for consideration for the intriguing game of the week.
I hadn't really thought about the intriguing game of the week. I have to be very careful because, again, I'm just going to be picking teams that are in contention for the playoffs for
All
both
right, we'll dig
the matchup. So that doesn't leave me a lot to choose from.
Here you go. This game is for the last playoff spot in the NFC. The only way the Packers can get it is to win this game. But Detroit needs to win, and they need Seattle to lose. So the Packers have their destiny in their own hands. Detroit does not. But both teams need the win to even think about getting that last spot in the NFC. I'm going with the Packers. I love Detroit, but I got to go with the Packers. After what they did last week, I got to go with the Packers.
Got to go with the Packers. Going against the bias, going with the Packers. I think this should be a really good game.
It's going to be a great game.
You know,
they already flexed this out to the last game of the night.
Yeah, they're really looking forward to this game. So I'm looking forward to it too. All right. Well, there you go, Benny. You made your pick for the season, the last pick of the season. But before we wrap it up, there's always one last piece of business. The Bias Plus Buster of the Week.
Yes, sir. The Green Bay Packers. Love it. That's why I'm picking them this week.
Unfavorable bias last week of 3.3 going against them. That was against the Vikings, right?
Yep.
Net win score.
And I picked the Vikings.
24.
I picked the Vikings to win that game.
Yes, you did.
So I was a little pissed off, but it kind of did my heart good to see Aaron Rodgers. This is all about Aaron Rodgers. I want people to know this. I know there's Packers fans out there. Our friend Blake Brown, your son Christopher, they're big Packer fans. Understand this, you guys. As pissed off as Aaron Rodgers had you in the beginning of the season, when he seemed like he really didn't give a damn about nothing except his money. He talked bad about his young receivers. He didn't seem to really want to be bothered with taking any blame for how poorly the team was playing, kind of threw blame around to other people. Behind the scenes, he has reeled these guys in. He has brought them more confidence. They are now a pretty dynamic young receiving core, and he's on top of his game right now. And the coaching staff has finally understood, before a lot of other teams who should have understood the same thing still haven't understood it, that if you run the ball and you have a great quarterback, now all of a sudden your defense, which was expected to be really good but struggled early, all of a sudden now is really good. The Packers have done a complete turnaround of their team, and you gotta love it.
Gotta love it. 24 points. That's how you get Bias Plus Buster of the Week. Congratulations to the Green Bay Packers. There you go. Give me a hand, Betty. Come on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Give me a hand, definitely.
I have to bring Booba down here because he knows how to clap now. He's clapping over all types of stuff. All right, Benny. That wraps it up for week 18's Bias Plus report. When we come back next week, we'll be talking about playoffs. Playoffs? We'll have the Sterling Net Point Power ranking for the season, for the regular season. So we'll see how everybody finishes out the season. That's always an interesting thing to do, because then the question is, how do you carry over, those characteristics into the playoffs? So that's going to be very interesting. Anything else before we wrap this up?
Okay, so next week's show, I will be in sunny Orlando, Florida for the UFFL Flag Football National Championships. I'm taking my team down. We're playing in Division III, Philly Knowles. Hopefully, we will do well. So please root for us. Think about us. I'll be broadcasting next week's show from our vacation villa. I'll probably be out by the pool and the hot tub. I talked to the owner of the home today. She told me it's been riding around 80 degrees down there. So I'll be getting ready to pack in a couple of days. Well, I'm a last minute packer, but I'll be grabbing my shorts and my t-shirts. I got shorts, t-shirts, sandals. I'm ready, bro.
Tree going?
Yeah, tree's going.
All right.
Yeah, tree's going.
Great.
We got a nice house. We got a 10-bedroom house.
Wow.
So half the team will be staying with me. The other half of the team got their own place. I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy hanging out with the guys. And hopefully we do well.
All right. Good luck. And as
Other than that, go Knowles.